All right, it's the Pete Sousa Show. Welcome back. Tuesday, coming up on Thanksgiving. Very excited for Thanksgiving, one of my favorite holidays because it has to do with football and sports. And that's always been my memory of Thanksgiving. So I'm pumped about that. We're brought to you by Slovacek's, Crawford Austin Properties. D1, Daniel Stark Injury Lawyers will put the mug front and center. And let's talk sports. Earlier today, I taped that show Inside the 12. And we had your buddy on, Shahan Jayaraja.
Yeah, he's great.
Awesome. But he came on and he was like a minute or two late. And he was like, he works for CBS. And he said, hey, I'm sorry, it's been a crazy day. Mac Brown just got fired. And I didn't know that Mac Brown had gotten fired. So I found that to be very interesting news. I almost wanted to lead this show like Drake told, like, why Mac Brown is the next coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Coming up next on Locked On. You know, like that's always, but Mac Brown, an amazing coach. I would imagine this is the end of the road for him. Hey, won a championship at Texas. There's really not much more you can say. Did amazing things for North Carolina's football program and then brought him back to respectability for a minute or two when he came back to North Carolina, but it's time for him to go. And I mean, not according to me, according to the school. So this is interesting. He's going to coach his last game against NC State on Saturday. And then he's done. Who will be the next coach of North Carolina? In my opinion, this is so far the most exciting job to come available in the coaching carousel that starts to turn during the college football offseason. A couple schools have thought, did they come to an agreement with Mac Brown, right? Hey, let's let him go. We want to get started on our search before anyone else. I mean, this is now purely speculative. But he ends his tenure 44-32 at North Carolina since 2019. But he really never could make the next step. His second stint at the program, he was there from 88 to 97. And, of course, won the title with Texas in 2015 or 2005, and then ended his tenure in 2013. One of the best Texas football teams of all time, which is saying something. What do you got on that, Scotty Swingler?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you want to appreciate what Mac Brown did at Texas, just look at the coaches who followed him.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and how long it took them finally now with Sark, they're up at that upper echelon again, but it took a decade for them to
Was
get
it
back
Charlie
there.
Strong, then Tom Herman?
Yes.
And then Sark.
Okay. Yeah. But Charlie Strong and Tom Herman, both at the time when they were hired, these are great hires. Look at what they've done. And and you just you think with that program and those resources, anybody who's decent could step in there and win. But Mac, I mean, I think it speaks to how good Mac really was for so long.
What has been the issue with Texas and consistency? This is a program that has more tools, I would say, than Alabama. But they've never found the same footing and success. Maybe it's because there's more going on football-wise in the state of Texas, and there's more, people going after the same recruits.
And add to that after Matt got fired for a decade, they were still in the Big 12, which is viewed as not as deep or as top of a conference as the SEC. And they couldn't win the Big 12. I mean, you had Oklahoma winning a ton of titles with some Baylor and TCU sprinkled in. I think living here in Texas where we are, there's this perception of UT that they almost just assume they're powerful and haven't had to work for it. I think there was almost a thought, especially 8 years ago when Baylor was still in contention for that top spot. There was a arrogance that comes with wearing the burnt orange, right? Yeah. Like this assumption of right. We are kings of the state and you weren't earning it on the football field.
Yeah.
I think I've been surprised that I think their jump to the SEC has motivated them to work for it again and elevate. And obviously Sark's been a huge part of that turnaround, but I don't know. I just think it speaks very highly to Mac Brown. And if you talk to anybody who's played for Mac Brown, they talk relentlessly about him as just this wonderful motivator, wonderful players coach, but also Dude, he was a consistent winner at Texas. It wasn't just 2005.
No.
I mean, they were a top 5 program.
When he got let go, it
tenure.
was kind of like, really? Like, it was sort of a surprise.
Well,
Okay.
he had a couple of down years there,
Yeah.
but I mean, honestly, he had a couple of down years because he had the wrong quarterback. I mean, they kind of struggled there. They went with Case McCoy for a season.
Yeah.
David Ash was not what he was projected to be, and he was Mac Brown was let go. But I mean, they were a top 5 program for a good 10 years.
He was 206 and 158, right, at Texas. Charlie Strong was 37 and 16. Tom Herman was 50 and 32, and right now Sark is actually 50 and 35. And Sark obviously been amazing so far in this run, especially this year. But yeah, that's a great point. You look at the coaches after. Mac Brown really is an elite level coach, obviously, and before him, right? Fred Akers obviously amazing, but then David McWilliams also ran in the coaching race, and John Makovic was a coach who sort of overrated out of Illinois and then went to Texas and never lived up to any of the hype. I want to talk about who now could replace Mac Brown. This is according to some of the rumors and some of the reports online. The top guy to replace Mac Brown, and this is purely speculation, but I think people are just trying to connect the dots and reading some tea leaves here. Matt Campbell has been mentioned over the years in several power conference openings, but he stayed at Iowa State. Now, do you think that just isn't as good a job?
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, Matt Campbell's had the opportunity to leave for clearly better jobs, and I don't buy that North Carolina, especially right now where we are with the conference structures.
Yeah,
I just don't buy North Carolina as a better job than Iowa State.
But if you're North Carolina, this is an idea of he's probably, is Matt Campbell, like, that we can think of off the top of our head right now, the number one free agent college football coach. He's not a free agent, but a guy who you think you could pry from their program.
If you can get him from Iowa State, that's a great hire.
Yeah,
I think so.
Is that a bad look for the Big 12 that he would go from Iowa State to North Carolina? I mean, it is. Look, I've been there.
Yes.
Enjoy it. Ames is Ames. It's freezing goddamn cold.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say yes and no. I mean, he's been at Iowa State a long time.
Yes.
So you could easily say, he needed the change of scenery. But again, I don't think it's a better job because neither North Carolina nor Iowa State is in a very super secure top conference position at this moment.
Jamie Chadwell at Liberty.
That makes way more sense to me.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Dan Mullen, really? Former Florida and Mississippi State head coach. Past 3 years he's been at ESPN, right? So Barry Odom, the head coach at UNLV. Garrett Riley, offensive coordinator at Clemson. Let's see who else. Some of the other names. John Summerall, that's Tulane's head coach. Now that's a guy who I think we'll see in the offseason take another job, a bigger job, right?
Yeah, you would think.
He's a guy that's in the mix.
Good coach.
And then I think that's all. Those are Jeff Traylor is a guy that's also in the mix.
Jeff Traylor is always mentioned in these because he's done a very good job. I just don't think there's any way he takes a job outside of the state.
Really?
I'd be shocked. He's a Texas high school guy through and through. I think Traylor is waiting for one of Baylor, Tech, dare I say, way down the road, A&M or Texas to open up again. I think if he's going to jump, he would prefer to stay in state.
Yeah,
that's Oklahoma. Even Oklahoma would make more sense for Traylor to me than the North Carolina.
They're 45 and 19. UTSA is since he took over the program.
Oh, he's a wonderful coach.
Yeah,
but he is a Texas high school football legend, and I think we'll stay,
that's really good intel.
We'll stay nearby.
Do you think a coach like Joey McGuire would almost be neutered if he was outside of Texas recruiting?
Certainly not neutered, but you have the best chance of success recruiting here and establishing your home base here.
Yeah.
It's why McGuire was almost an ingenious hire at Texas Tech. Look at the recruiting classes he's already putting together for them. This is where he has the best chance of success. I think the same is true for Traylor.
Do you feel that Baylor should have hired Joey McGuire?
This is a really odd time to ask me that question. Because 2 months ago, absolutely, I felt that. Yeah. But now, Dave Aranda seems to have kind of figured it out on the field in the last 2 months for Baylor. He seems to have figured it out currently with the recruiting class coming in for Baylor. So I don't think I can just hammer that. But at the time, I felt like it should have been Joey.
Yeah.
And there have certainly been times over the last 2 years I feel like I wish we had Joey. Yeah.
Here's an interesting, for instance, but I guess this, like Dave Aranda, if he were to lose his job, I don't know that he would be a sought-after head coach. I think he would go back to being a coordinator somewhere.
He would be a defensive coordinator for a top 10 team.
Yeah, no question. Yeah. But and I guess, like, let's say after the Sugar Bowl season, like, he probably would have gotten a great job, right? If he had been like, I want to go somewhere else. But he signed a big extension with Baylor. But it's interesting, like, he doesn't quite have, and I don't care about this. I think that, and it goes to show, but especially with the resolve they've showed in their turnaround this year, we're talking about Baylor and Dave Aranda, but he doesn't have the bells and whistles, right? Like, can he invigorate a fan base? I don't know. Yeah.
No, he can't.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
He doesn't.
I'm not even convinced he can invigorate. Like, okay, and I'm going to sound like I'm throwing, but like there were games, especially early this season, where Baylor came out and looked flat for the first 2 quarters. Like, I'm still trying to convince myself he can motivate a team to get fired up for every game. Like, and again, the last 2 months have been very good, and they have saved his job. He deserves to come back, and I wish him the best. Like, I hope he's super successful in here for a long time. I really do. But yeah, he is not a prototypical head coach. Joey McGuire very much is. Jeff Traylor, same kind of boat, very much. I mean, but I'm a Texas high school football fan through and through too. So those success stories of the Texas high school football coach that are succeeding at power,
it's a lot of fun
programs, is great.
It's so interesting. As a guy from the Northeast, like, that never happened. Like, we talked about it when Jerry Faust died a little bit ago. Like, that was, he went from Massillon High School in Ohio to now all of a sudden he's the coach of Notre Dame. Like, that didn't happen.
I mean, that was our Bryles story at Baylor.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw the other news this morning, much less notable than Mac Brown, but Houston fired their offensive coordinator.
Oh yeah.
Elevated Sean Bell.
Yeah. Former
came
Baylor
out of
guy.
Texas high school football. Like that. He was a head coach, at Magnolia, and then
and he'll stay, and really he'll probably keep that job because Willie Fritz is brand new.
I hope he does.
And I think look, Houston hasn't scored. I think they've scored 14 points the last 2 weeks. They average something like, it's a joke, like 12 points a game, maybe less than that. It's been a rough, and their defense really isn't bad. But Matt, that's very interesting. The Jeff Traylor thing. Look, as much as it sucks to see people lose their jobs, we are at that time of year where the coaching carousel starts to spin, and I wonder if North Carolina kind of ushered Mac Brown off of their carousel to get going on finding another coach. One person we can ask about that is Matt Mosley. I'm going to ask Mosley if Mac Brown's going to be the next coach of the Cowboys, and let's see what he says. Matt Mosley coming up on the eve of a Cowboys Thanksgiving home affair against the New York Giants. Stay with us.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics, are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win, and when pretty good. You know what I mean? I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did. So,
Deserving, man.
Which seems like it fit.
Sports.
The Pete Sousa Show, powered by Slovacics on the Rogue Media Network, is joined now by Matt Mosley. Matt Mosley, this is not a better time to talk to you. Every Thanksgiving is historic in Dallas because it just reminds us of some of the amazing Thanksgiving Day games that we've witnessed, at Texas Stadium and now Jerry World. Will you be going to the game tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be there. I rarely miss one of these, and the chance to possibly see a guy like Tommy DeVito in person, although I'm worried now that they're saying it's not 100% that he'll go. So, and the Giants are actively tanking. People want the Cowboys to tank. They obviously don't know how to tank. As evidenced by what happened in the Washington game. But I'll be there. I rarely miss this.
I know you got a nose in it, and there's a lot of dog in you. But you never know what's going on. Your daughter's a senior. This could be her last. It is her last high school Thanksgiving. You got all kinds of great stuff going on in Lake Highlands. I don't know.
You trying to make me cry or something? Everybody, I keep hearing these last things. I'm like, is she not coming home from college? I mean, I'm not going to see. So anyway, I have, you would love this sometime if we have more time, I'll have to tell you about one of the greatest Cowboys Thanksgiving stories ever. And it was a little bit before. Can you tell me now?
How long is it?
Well, I did a story catching up. So one of the unbelievable Thanksgiving memories was this guy, Clint the Mad Bomber Longley.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And that happened
just from NFL films and stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah. You were not born. I was like 1 or 2. This happened in like 75, maybe 74, 75. And it was Staubach got knocked out of the game. And Longley comes in, leads them to a win over the what they were then called the Redskins. And Blaine Nye had the awesome line after it, the Cowboys offensive lineman. He said, because Longley was different. I mean, he was a weird character. And there's a lot of stories involving him. But he was a young, talented player, and he came off the bench, and he leads the Cowboys to a Thanksgiving victory, one of the most famous Thanksgiving wins ever, because Staubach got knocked out and didn't even know where he was. And so here comes Longley. And so after the game, the Cowboys lineman, Blaine Nye, says, it was the triumph of the uncluttered mind. It was a good line. And then years later, as a young reporter at the Dallas Morning News, nobody had ever heard from Clint Longley. And I found him in Corpus, and I went to they called him the Mad Bomber. And it was like an investigative journalism. I touched base, and I was able to get a hold of his wife, but she couldn't get him to talk. And so I went out to Corpus to try to find him, and I saw him coming out of his house. I was staking him out to talk to the Mad Bomber. And I was going to be polite, but I thought, as a young, aggressive reporter, I'm like, they've flown me all the way out here. I got to get this guy to talk. I got to do whatever it is. And so, like an idiot, as he comes out of the garage in his truck, he's got his wife in the truck with him, and he peels out, and he's going pretty fast, and I decide to follow him. And so the story begins. I'll have to find the story and send it to you, with the Mad Bomber going down toward the beach, and he turns his truck back around, and he's coming at me on this little tiny road that leads to the beach. And I finally, at some point, I'm like, this is not worth dying over, like trying to get Clint Longley. And I pulled way off the road and I watched him go by at about 80 on this tiny little road. And that was as close as I came to talking to Clint, the Mad Bomber Longley.
Did he give you a look? Like, did he look like, what the hell are you doing when he drove by you?
He was going too fast. I can't say that I saw his
By the way,
look.
you left out. And I know you just assume we know this, but didn't he get into a fist fight with Roger Staubach? Didn't he, like, there was a fight, right?
Yeah, if you want to call a flat out sucker punch a fight, he snuck up behind Roger, and I think Roger was like taking his shoulder pads off or something, and I think he got traded the next day. I mean, almost. They traded him to San Diego, I think. But Longley snuck up on Roger. They were mad. He was mad at him for something. I can't even remember. And Danny White might have already been on the team, but he came up behind him and just completely sucker punched him. And to this day, that makes Roger mad that happened. You know, and I think it was like Randy White, the manster, as I recall, grabbed Longley and like body slammed him or carried him out of there or whatever. But Longley never to be heard from again. And sadly, that's basically how things ended for him. Although there were teammates over the years that would keep up with him. In fact, D.D. Lewis, another famous Cowboys player, once hung out with him, and I had pictures of that went in the story.
Oh, so you wrote the story, you just couldn't get a quote from Longley.
Correct.
Wow.
His wife was talking to me the entire time. And like she wanted him to talk, but she knew, I mean, this was and think about how long after this was like, I was doing that story in like 2002 or 2003.
Yeah.
I mean, it had been 25 years since he had retired from football. And he was living in this little cul-de-sac in Corpus, and he was in fights with all his neighbors. I mean, he was just a strange character. Like the whole little HOA was mad at him because he wasn't, doing something proper. He let his grass grow too long or something, and they were all mad at him. I mean, the Mad Bomber, I mean, it was, the Cowboys have had some, like Hollywood Henderson, the Mad Bomber. They had one dude that got, arrested for some strange stuff.
Who was that?
A receiver that, I don't know if you want to get into any of that, but that was, that would have been Rensel. I hope I have the right name. I don't want to get him mixed up with another receiver, but
okay.
Yeah. Lance Rensel, who was a pretty good receiver, but yeah, he was arrested for some weird stuff. And then of course the great Don Meredith, who once stopped talking, like he was like close friends with the writers, and the writers were extremely tough on the players back then. You would think that, it was just really interesting. It was still when the writers and the players would hang out.
Yeah.
And I someday I'll look that up for you. There was one of those writers wrote something about Don Meredith after a particular loss. And I think the writer was just horribly hungover is what led to him writing it. And he was actually good friends with Meredith. And the beginning of that column or the story said something like Don Meredith, quote, or a comma, a born loser. And it was like after a tough loss to Cleveland or something. And that was either Gary Cartwright or Bud Shrake. Both of them are famous writers who sadly are gone now. But one of those two, and they were good friends with him. And I don't know what led to him. Who knows? But it was like an awful thing to say. I mean, they literally opened the story after the game calling him a born loser.
But in your memories from covering the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, was there a prolific game or a moment that stuck out for you on Thanksgiving Day game?
I think I remember one. I don't know. I don't know if it was prolific. I just remember they tried to start Drew Henson on Thanksgiving, and it went so poorly that the guy they basically ruled out for the game, Vinny Testaverde, they had to like get Vinny off the mat and wheel him out there and let him play the second half to have any chance. I think it was against the Chicago Bears. Parcells pulled Henson at halftime. And boy, Joe Torre, who was, of course, the famous Yankees manager, had kind of told Parcells, like, dude, this kid just doesn't have it. He doesn't have it. So Parcells, this was a Jerry deal that Jerry did. So this was Bill kind of sticking it to Jerry. So he took Henson out of the game, and Vinny had to come out there. Now, did Vinny lead them to a win? I don't think so. I think they lost that game. But for some reason, when you bring up Thanksgiving, that one does come to mind. And by the way, Henson and I and Romo, the three of us were friends, but those two didn't like each other because Henson at one point, just because they gave up a third-round pick for him, was ahead of Romo. So they didn't care for each other. So it was like dating two people. As a reporter, I had to like talk to them separately. I had to keep them apart.
Last one more question about that circle you mentioned, because this is something I wanted to make a note to ask you a while back. So when Drew Bledsoe says, Tony wasn't necessarily the guy who was hanging around the facility, compared him to Tom Brady, which is, that's tough to be compared to Tom Brady. Did Romo and Bledsoe, did they have a good relationship?
No. So Romo, and it was both of their fault, but Bledsoe arrived and he had an attitude, and he was kind of like, I've been there. I'm a big time guy. And Romo was an up and comer, and he did not treat Tony with that much respect. So when Tony, Drew kind of always resented Tony, and Tony obviously felt that. Tony worshipped Testaverde. Like Vinny took Tony under his wing and was great to him, and where Drew kept him at arm's length. And so they never liked each other. And it was weird because the night that famous bobble happened, it was Parcells' last game with the Cowboys, and Tony had to hold, and he dropped the snap, and that led to them losing against Seattle. And I just remember we were out that night, and I ran into Drew at a bar in Seattle, and you could just tell Drew, that was kind of his place. He was from that part of the country, and so of course he was in there. Everybody loved him, and I just could kind of tell that Drew did try to console Tony after that game, but I promise you, Drew didn't feel that bad for him. So, but honestly, that was as much Drew's fault as Tony's. Tony, based on where Tony came from, and I know Cowboys fans still wish that he had done more, but I mean, Tony was unbelievable. Like what he was able to accomplish for the Cowboys, given where he came from, even compared to Dak. Like Tony came from a place so far underneath Dak, you can't even believe it, from freaking Eastern Illinois, and nobody gave him a chance. And he literally became one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So anyway.
Did Bledsoe say anything to you about Romo when you saw him out?
Yeah, but it was whatever he said he was saying the right things. Okay. He was saying he felt bad for him. And again, Drew was just out there trying to blow off some steam. Yeah. But as I recall that night, I did not see like pain and anguish on Drew's face. I saw a guy who was glad the season had come to an end, and he didn't have to. I mean, think about how that is. First of all, you lose your job to Brady after being the bonus baby with the Patriots, and then you lose your job to an undrafted free agent quarterback in Romo. And so Drew, I think at that point was like, golly, let me get out of here.
How about, by the way, Matt, how about that? Two great coaches believing in themselves and knowing, hey, I'm making this decision. It's not going to be popular, but I'm doing what I have to do. And two careers go on to amazing success.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating. how that happened, but I think that speaks to, I mean, Bill knew he had to do it, and he didn't really want to do it. I mean, he did not want to succeed or fail based on an inexperienced quarterback. But at some point, he knew he had something with Tony. And everybody, by the way, tries to take credit for Tony, but there's a dude that is like a consultant now that nobody even knows about or talks about with the Dolphins. And his name's David Lee, and he used to be the offensive coordinator for the Arkansas Razorbacks under Houston Nutt. But he's the guy who believed and helped Tony the most out of all those people. Like Sean Payton gets credit, Parcells gets credit. There's a lot of people who want and try to take credit for Tony, but this guy David Lee, and unfortunately, David's a great friend of mine, but I can't have him on because he still works for an NFL team.
Yeah,
and he would get in trouble. But he's an awesome friend, great guy.
All right, one more thing for you, and as we get to present day with the Cowboys, you guys were hilarious on the Doomsday podcast. Honestly, entertaining and informative after that win. Ed Werder and Matt Mosley. It's up on the Rogue Media Network. Of course, you can hear Matt today on ESPN 1660, ESPN Central Texas. But you guys were funny. I mean, you compliment each other so well, and the quirks about they should have lost, and it's almost unfortunate that they won. What is the mindset of this team? Are they like, hey, we're going to win, we're going to bust our ass, we're kind of want to give everybody a big shit burger to eat, as the like Lou Brown said in Major League, or are they, hey, are they just not a very good football team who had one good week?
Both. They're not good, but also it looks now like Washington, and again, I think Daniels is going to be really good and already is in some respects.
But all that praise, Matt, that was way ahead of schedule.
Maybe so, but he was playing great though. I understand why he got all the praise, but he I don't know what's going on. Cliff Kingsbury was being mentioned as a possible replacement for McCarthy, and that was not a great show they put on the other day, except for at the very end of the game when they hit on, I don't even think you call that a Hail Mary. I mean, just threw it's got an 86-yard touchdown. What a crazy ending to that game. But I think the Cowboys they've done this in the past when they've been bad. They've had a late season run. Is there a path where they could possibly get back to 500 at 7-7? Yes. Do I think they'll beat both Cincinnati and Tampa in Arlington? I do not. I think Joe Burrow, I think Baker and Tampa. I mean, they've been horrific at home. So I would not trust this team at all at this point, but I would also not be totally shocked if they somehow ran this thing to 7-7. And then everybody would go crazy, and we would be talking about how, maybe they'll somehow backdoor the wild card. But I give this team it's about the same chance that Baylor has to play in the Big 12 title game.
Yeah.
I give them like a 2 to 4% chance of making the playoffs.
Tomorrow's atmosphere, will it be celebratory and exciting like a Cowboys Thanksgiving Day game usually is, or will it be a little flat? And do you think
flat?
Do you think flat?
Yeah, I think that was the other day against the Texans. There were a ton of empty seats, but
it's the Thanksgiving Day game. You got Lainey Wilson at halftime.
Is she good? I can't think of anything she does. I kind of like Miranda and Casey Musgraves.
This one's she's awesome. Yes, Lainey Wilson's impressive. She's from Louisiana though. That's the one thing. She's not a Texas girl.
And Carrie Underwood from Louisiana?
I think so, yeah. She's from Oklahoma, actually. I know that Lainey Wilson had a concert, I think it was in Baton Rouge or New Orleans, and she had Kim Mulkey there as like the guest of honor, because Kim's Miss Louisiana now. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, every time I get involved in Kim discussions, Kim's
awesome.
Go well.
Look, I'm going to say it. She's awesome. If I could have played for a coach like that, I would have loved it because she would have gotten the best out of me. But we can leave it at that.
We'll leave that off your broadcast tomorrow. leave that
Matt
nugget.
Mosley. Yeah, definitely. ESPN Central Texas. Matt, thanks so much, dude. I appreciate it.
All right, you bet. See you, Pete.
All right, see you, bud. All right, the Pete Sousa Show rolls on after this. Thanks so much to Matt Mosley. He'll be catching up with Cam later on today. Or should I say Cam will be catching up with him, right? Cam's laughing. Cam's next. Thanks so much. Stay with us. The Pete Sousa Show rolls on after this.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
You are here with your shoot first point guard, Corey Dickman.
Also, if you're not creating new fans in a small market, then you're not creating that base of people to go to games and pay for merchandise and pay for stuff and concessions at the Moda Center and yada yada.
Yeah, let's talk draft. That's the only thing we have to look forward to.
The only thing we have to look forward to.
That's what I will teach my son. You will teach your daughter as Blazers fans. It's like, look, the two most exciting times of the year for us are the draft lottery and the draft itself. Like, here we are. This is our thing. Give me some memories and thoughts. I know you had mentioned the first time you had met Bill. What were some of those first memories that came back when you heard the news?
Sports.
Here we are. The Pete Sousa Show continues. So Matt Mosley just joined us. Cam Stewart, who will be joining Matt Mosley a little later on today on ESPN Central Texas. Cam, so we have Scotty's on the move. We're going to get Cam shot better, I guess. Scotty Swingler's making it happen, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is talent, and he's talented in front and behind the camera. Cam.
Yes.
I was talking to Mosley about Clint Longley. I almost was embarrassed to say that I watched the YouTube recut of that exact game, probably like 3 weeks ago. Literally, some guy did a YouTube video, the ones that you and I so much love to watch. Sometimes
I do, yeah.
And it was amazing. The guy had it wasn't a closed caption because it wasn't what the announcers were saying. There were no announcers. He had NFL Films music that he put underneath this footage of the game, and he put like what would happen on each play. It was amazing. And the last play of the game, like the last 30 seconds, Clint Longley leads them back and throws a beautiful pass to Drew Pearson.
Drew Pearson, yeah.
And it was like, I just can't imagine. It was like Texas Stadium was on fire. It was amazing.
And I think, ironically enough, or coincidentally enough, that sucker punch came after a derogatory term thrown at Drew Pearson from Clint Longley. I don't know if it was like the word we're thinking, but it's all the stories said like he just took a crack at Drew Pearson and Staubach. Staubach had a great line. It's probably in that Mosley story. I sent you what I could find on it. But he said he was like, I'll knock your Bugs Bunny teeth out or something. Like something great that Staubach said to Clint Longley, and then the rest is history.
Staubach, amazing. Just an amazing
Captain America.
Amazing man, amazing quarterback. How do you know this stuff about Clint Longley?
I just remember that NFL Films thing. I think there was some show about it, and I remember it from when I used to watch the NFL Network top 10s all the time. It was like one-hit wonders. Yeah. Clint Longley, one game. So, I found that fascinating, and it would have been right in terms of age-wise, it would have been right in my dad's wheelhouse.
Oh yeah,
he'd have been a teenager, and that was Thanksgiving Day. So I'm sure we could pull him up, and he could tell you about that game too. So I definitely heard about it.
Some of those Cowboys teams, they were just different. Clint Longley, Matt mentioned Hollywood Henderson. They were on the same team. Hollywood Henderson was toot and blow in the middle of Super Bowl X. I know that because he told me on the Payoff podcast.
Really?
I mean, yeah. Like, he was probably the best guest I ever had. We had him on early, and he was amazing, dude. I mean, Hollywood Henderson has the best story ever. Sober now, obviously, but boy, he was in it. I mean, he had a story where he got in trouble or taken out of the game because he was doing something with a towel, and they were losing to the Redskins late in the year. Tom Landry yanked him out of the game at RFK, and he said he packed his nose up with so much cocaine after that game and went in and gave Tom Landry a piece of his mind. And he was let go. I mean, this was after, and he was let go after that game.
Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's amazing. So even sometimes now, me being sober, I think twice before I'm ready to fly off at a boss. I'm like, I probably want to take it easy, hold back on that. Not a good move. All right, Baylor basketball. I want to talk about that selfishly.
Okay.
So how are you feeling about the team coming off the Bahamas?
Brother, I don't know. I don't know what to feel about this team yet because it's still so early.
Yeah.
And
what did you think of the Tennessee loss? How about that?
Not good. Like, not good. This is okay. So 4 games against
short,
ranked
by the way,
teams.
locked on Baylor.
4 games against ranked teams. Arkansas, you played great. You led the whole way. The other 3, and now I'm cherry picking a little bit, but those other 3, 5 of the 6 halves you played, you were outscored by double digits. Like, just crushed. They were down 27 at halftime. That's almost impossible to do time-wise. Like, how do you go minus 27 and a half? Oh, well, Tennessee's pretty good. Isn't Baylor supposed to be good? Oh, well, Baylor played the night before, double overtime. So did St. John's. They ran Virginia off the court in the earlier game the next day. So, like, that's not a good enough excuse for me. If they're down a couple possessions most of the game and they lose by 12 at the end after cutting it to 2, okay, that's a legs thing, right? You didn't have the legs, whatever. But they got outscored by 27 in the first half, and one guy hit 5 threes before the first media timeout of the game. Like, how do you let that happen? Like, that's not they're just tired from the night before.
Yeah.
Like, this is twice within the first couple of weeks that you've just been absolutely boat raced, like just blown off the floor. Tennessee's pretty good. Yes. Gonzaga could be one of the best teams in the country. Sure. But like, you are supposed to be around that level, if not at that level, right? Like, if you're a preseason top 10 team, that's not an excuse for me. Oh, well, they're 2 ranked teams. And there's still some of that with the Baylor fan base. Like, I'm not saying you need to call for anyone's job or anything, but there's so much excuse making within the Baylor basketball fan base because most of them never thought Baylor would win a national championship. And that's great. But like, that's not good enough to just say, well, oh, those teams are pretty good. It's like, you're supposed to be too. We can't just talk up this game of, oh, they're the only team to be a top 3 seed the last 5 years, and they have the only team with this many consecutive years with guys in the lottery. It's like, you can't talk that game and then be like, oh, well, Tennessee's good. Like, no shit. You're supposed to be pretty good too. So I'm not like giving up on this team or anything like that, but there is cause for concern with the way they've played against ranked teams this year. And
what's the biggest concern that you would like to see tomorrow afternoon rectified? Like, something that will make you feel good. I mean, I know it's New Orleans.
Yeah. And honestly, Pete, I don't know how much I could take from a game like that.
Yeah.
Because they went plus 110 in the 2 games between Arkansas and that St. John's game. Like, I don't know how much I could take from it. But the thing I will be looking at before conference play, which is something we talked about last week, is the man defense. If you can't play man at a respectable level, then you can't win. You can't win championships. Like, you can't do it. And I don't know how much you can win in the Big 12 with it. My hope is that even if they don't figure it out, there are some teams in the Big 12 that are not high-end 3-point shooting teams, and that you can zone the shit out of them. But I also think they can get
conference for that.
Yeah, and I also think you can get this turned around. Like, I think they could figure out how to play a good man defense before then, or good enough like they did last year, and threw in a lot of zone in there, and it worked for them. But
a lot of the man-to-man, as you know, a lot of defense is talking, right? And staying connected. And a lot of times with inexperience, that takes a minute or two.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's not specific to Baylor. Again, I don't want to make excuses like they're not the only team in the country dealing with a bunch of transfers.
St. John's brought in a couple of starters too. I think they brought in 3 of their starters this year. You know, like you're right. It's not, it can't be the only thing. It's part of this. Absolutely, it's part of this.
Yeah.
And they scheduled tougher than almost anyone in the country these first couple of weeks. So there's that too. But it felt like you were past it in terms of like, okay, you know, nobody schedules their first 2 games against top 20 teams. You won one of them pretty comfortably, and you lost the other one pretty bad. So now we're going to get those cream puffs under our belt, and we're going to be the team that we're going to be. And it's my sincere hope that this is not the team that they're going to be, because I think they can be better than this.
How about Baylor football?
Jeff
Grimes, I think it's kind of been like, now it's starting to bubble up story-wise, right? Because we're getting closer to the kickoff. But I don't think it's been talked about enough that this guy was, you know, Dave Aranda's offensive coordinator when they went to the Sugar Bowl and won it. You know, after they won one of the most memorable Big 12 championship games in the history of the Big 12, and certainly for Baylor. What are your thoughts about him coming back with a very good Kansas team right now?
I'm intrigued by this. First part of it is the way we're talking about Jake Spavital this year, albeit very different schemes, but the way that we're talking about Jake Spavital is the way we were talking about Jeff Grimes in 2021. Like how quick we forget. It's like, oh, nice. Dave got this one right. It's going to help him out big time. We've got the future of this offense. Like that's what we were saying with the RVO. Yeah, I can want to say RPO, but that was not it. RVO. With Grimes and Mateos. And it went stale, went dry. And I think if you look at the roster that Baylor had last year, it's gets to be more of a gray area of whether Jeff Grimes was a scapegoat or not. Now, let's not beat around the bush. The offenses were not getting it done by the end of the time there. And I think there are some people who would also say, well, Dave Aranda's lack of recruiting acumen has killed them the last couple of years, and that it's tough for Jeff Grimes to put an explosive offense together in his style when you don't have the horses in the stable. So there's all that to say, like there's a bit of push-pull on whether this was a good move, whether Aranda was right to do this, or was he just blaming somebody else again? But Baylor's offense looks pretty damn good this year. So, well, yeah, I mean, that was the second time he had fired coordinators. He had fired Larry Fedora after year 1, which was a stroke of genius. Looked like, and Ron Roberts after 2022, and then he demotes Powledge this past year to still being the DC, but not the play caller, and fires the offensive coordinator. And usually coaches don't get that many opportunities at it. But now Baylor's got a pretty damn good offense, so it looks pretty like a good move, and the fans are loving it. And Jeff Grimes, it took some time, but they have absolutely figured it out at Kansas. I mean, these are the 2 most explosive offenses in the conference. 2 teams that couldn't buy touchdowns in the non-conference schedule and play way differently. And here they are. I mean, they're both putting up 30 plus every game. In fact, 6 of the last 7 games, Kansas has gone for at least 4 touchdowns. The only one they didn't was even more impressive. They won a slugfest at BYU, which is a game they're not supposed to win. Be it, at BYU, they're not supposed to win that, and they're not supposed to win low scoring.
And they barely lost that Kansas State game. Like this, they could have won 6 in a row.
Yeah, you're right.
Barely lost.
And I think, I don't know this for a fact, but if I'm in Jeff Grimes' shoes, I probably would have some bad blood there.
Do you know for a fact?
No, I don't. All
right.
I know from some people kind of around the Jeff Grimes thing who have worked with him and were like, yeah, I mean, I would be pretty pissed the way he was treated at the end, that kind of thing, but nothing like, oh yeah, Jeff said this. I think he did say something earlier in the year where it was like, yeah, this one's circled for me. Like this one's circled
by the way,
he's
an intimidating man, Jeff Grimes.
Really?
He's big.
Big guy, kind of quiet.
He's like this when he talks. It's just like, whoa, he commands respect. And the reason I bring that up is because there was a moment there in 2022 or 2022, the year, What was they won the Sugar Bowl? I always get screwed up. 2021. So the fall of 2022, right? Like it was. This guy's going to be a head coach in 6 months. That's what I really thought. And then of course, Baylor was ranked preseason 10.
And picked to win the conference.
Yeah, and so a lot of things changed. All right, I got like 5 more minutes left with you. What's your favorite holiday movie?
Oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's really tough. I am a sucker for some of the real sappy ones around Christmas.
Like what? Like Miracle on 34th Street?
Yeah, I liked that when I was a kid. I haven't watched it in a while.
By the way, Cam's 100 years old, folks.
Yeah.
He just looks great.
I watch Love Actually every year.
Okay.
Yeah, which is like as sappy as it gets.
Yeah.
Love It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes.
It's my grandmother's favorite movie. So watch that every year.
Your grandmother's still alive.
Yeah.
Nice.
91 years old.
Oof.
91 years old.
That's scary.
So she would have saw that
kicking around at that age.
I don't want to be, honestly. She would have saw that movie in theaters. She was like a teenager, would have saw it in theaters and then probably stayed for the friggin' news to watch the news. In fact, she found out about Pearl Harbor from like watching the newsreels in the movie theater.
So you would go to the movies and see the news?
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of like other movie trailers, they would do a 15-minute newsreel.
No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's real. Like that's hard to wrap my mind around.
Yeah. And her father was leaving Hawaii at the time. So she all of a sudden sees us on the newsreels and probably, doesn't find out for like 4 or 5 days because, no phones from the boat or anything, whether her father was alive. Like crazy stuff.
Can you imagine like how divisive the news is today? Like you couldn't do that anymore.
No.
Couldn't play the news.
No, you could not do that.
There'd be fights and shit. People would be losing their minds. Like
Rocky
they
IV
don't
would
play
be up
the
there
news
too,
at the airport anymore. It's it's
really
it's
that's probably a good thing. Honestly. we don't need any more stress going into that.
Yeah. All right. So what else? I mean,
Rocky IV.
No, that's not a Christmas.
Fights him on Christmas Day. I don't know. What do you want from me?
And I can say as a kid, I saw it over Christmas break. I remember that in the theater.
Another kind of old sappy one that's technically not a Christmas movie, but you only see it around the holidays is The Sound of Music. This is where my dad's effeminate side rubs off on me. He loves some musicals. Love The Sound of Music, dude.
Beautiful movie.
I guess I would go with It's a Wonderful Life then.
That Von Trapp guy just died, by the way. Not that long. I think he's still
the
alive.
young one of the kids. Yeah, one of the kids.
No, the old man was still alive till recently.
Georg? No.
Okay.
That would have made him like 130.
So the young guy who was
father?
Let's do this real quick. Yeah.
Georg. Like George.
Sound of Music, right?
We used to
65.
Grandparents also had a timeshare in
Christopher
Stowe,
Plummer.
Vermont. Christopher Plummer, the actor.
Yeah.
Okay, not the Von Trapp guy, the actor who played him. Yes, he just died. And Julie Andrews is still alive.
Yeah, okay.
And a couple of those kids are also no longer
Cam
with
will
us.
ding you on the technicality, man.
I mean, that's not a technicality. Scotty, will you back me up on this? Those are two different people. Like Georg Von Trapp was a guy. Like
those are two different
Those are two different people.
All right.
The technicality.
Those are two different people.
Technicality.
It's just factual.
Yeah, Christopher Plummer within the last year or so.
Yeah, well, 2021.
Oh, okay, 3 years.
Yeah, he was
before
a great
Baylor
actor.
won the Sugar Bowl. He didn't get to see it. That's too bad.
He was totally bummed.
The last time they won it was before he was in The Sound of Music. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, 57 was the last time they had won it before 2021. He was really bummed, I think, to miss that. But yeah, I'll go with It's a Wonderful Life. I think that's my favorite. I can't stand A Christmas Story. I've seen it way too many times in my life. In fact, I was talking about this with Grace last night. She was like, I've never seen it. I was like, how have you never seen it? Like, how do you not? That's like not seeing The Wizard of Oz. Like, how do you not just happen upon that? They play it for a day straight on cable.
Is The Wizard of Oz a holiday movie?
No, but it feels like the one that you would watch.
Yeah, every Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, it will come on.
That should be for planes, trains, and automobiles.
That's an unbelievable.
So I watched a YouTube video that people were like, "There's not enough good Thanksgiving movies."
Yeah, no, there aren't.
Because there's no real reason to not have them. It's a family holiday, like you're with loved ones, a lot like Christmas. Like, why can't you do something like that? But that's really the only quintessential one.
Yeah.
I don't do Home Alone. I've seen it enough times in my life. Elf.
I feel like the Mel Gibson movie, where his "Give me back my son." That one.
Mad Max. Yeah.
Not Mad Max. Give me back my
The
son.
Patriot.
No.
Thanksgiving movie.
You guys know what I'm talking about, right?
I don't know that one. Yeah.
No, hold on.
I haven't seen a ton of Mel Gibson, to be honest with you.
I've got to push back against Cam on that Elf.
Please,
take, man. That
on what take?
Elf.
Oh, I like Elf. I like Elf better than those other two, but like I've seen it so many times.
They blend like that old-fashioned Christmas movie with the Rankin and Bass claymation on occasion with the. I just think it's timeless. I think Elf is truly brilliant.
Elf is a great movie, and that was
I like the Wayne Corbett jersey in that.
That was a movie too. I was listening to a movie podcast recently about that. When it got made, a lot of folks, like a lot of the SNL people, were like, "Oh man,
that movie's
Will has a flop. Like it's gonna suck."
That movie entrenched Jon Favreau as a filmmaker.
Yes,
like, he was already making some good stuff at that point, but that one said, "Hey, this guy can make real films that appeal to wide audiences." Like,
that was
it's a great
blockbuster, and I thought he was a pretty good actor. Made is one of my like low key favorite movies. Jon Favreau.
Swingers. I'll bet you're a big Swingers guy.
It was all right. I think it's like that's another one that was like it's kind of overexposed. So Give Me Back My Son was Ransom. Mel Gibson.
So you anything to do with Thanksgiving?
Mel Gibson.
Pete's gonna read it and it's gonna be like around 4th of July weekend.
Rene Russo.
What year did that come out?
1996. I saw it.
Yeah, it sounds perfect.
Yeah,
that sounds perfect.
All right,
action blockbuster.
All right, that's it. We got to go. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks to Matt Mosley. Thanks to Slovacics. Of course, Scotty.
Giving a lot of thanks.
Huh?
Giving a lot of thanks.
Well, it's that time of year, Cam. Why don't you record your Thanksgiving video? The Pete Sousa Show. We're back tomorrow.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
I mean, yeah, a new coach comes in, they're going to turn the roster. I think that's just we've got all these transfer portal stats and what Dion did and what Fritz has done. I mean, that's the deal, man. That's the game that's being played nowadays.
Maybe a little bit unknown at quarterback. I mean, unknown to the rest of the world, but you know, he dove into the portal and got a guy who is super athletic.
South Dakota State's really good. Give us a little bit of breakdown about what they can do and what Oklahoma State needs to be worried about.
But look at that form right there. I need to say nothing else about this because I found one.
It is Matt Mosley, and it's the Obstructed View podcast, Rogue Media Network. I think they're learning that there's really no wonderful view of me. See, I feel like they think this feed's going to be really wonderful.
There must have been no BS, like 20 scouts, 15 to 20 NBA scouts there to see him, and he was top 5.
When your old number wasn't working, I went through various channels to track you down. So unfortunately, you can never get away from me. But I'm happy. No. I'm happy to have you today.
No, thanks for having me. And you know we always family, no matter where I'm at.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics, are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win, and when pretty good. You know what I mean? I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did. So,
deserved it, man.
Which seems like it fit.
Welcome to a special edition of the Doomsday Podcast. Look at this. We got one of the great golfers in the world, certainly one of the great pass rushers in NFL history.
But he also had a vision for you. And so it was like you had the best of both worlds, right? You had somebody on you early, and then you had somebody who was maybe
more relaxed.
What were a couple of your biggest takeaways?
The person you referred to that I spoke with, I've spoken to some personnel people and general management of the league to get some, independent, objective assessments of the players the Cowboys picked, and we'll go through that. Has the general manager changed at all in the draft room?
Nope, it's been the same since I was here the last time.
We are Rogue Media Sports.